The first one, what would I add in my book about the new perspectives? I wouldn't add anything in the book. The book is long enough already. But if I had a lot of energy and time, I might spend time looking at the new leadership, right? I have not done that in detail. It takes a lot of work. I expect that will be done by the next generation of scholars, not my generation. In terms of China's future, will there be authoritarian resilience? I think what I would consider the most likely scenario. I think the most likely scenario I would see is that after the next Party Congress, there will be some serious steps taken, but that it won't be enough, that there will be a lot of mess and muddling along for some years. And I think things may get worse before they get better. And I think they will need fairly strong action, and I don't see that this new group yet has the public support. They might be able to develop it for taking stronger actions. The question is, what would Deng do about the princelings? Deng did not talk about princelings. He talked about training successors. And he wanted to train people who were knowledgeable, who would work for the country, and who would do things in the future. And I think if he were alive, he would be very concerned with the kind of corruption. I think he would repeat the speech he made about the 2 fists. We have 1 fist, we need to push reform and opening, and with the other fist, we need to crack down on improper behavior. On the question of why he picked Jiang Zemin as his successor, until June 1989, or at least till May 1989, the successor he had chosen, certainly since the 13th Party Congress 2 years earlier, was Zhao Ziyang. And after Tiananmen failed, and Zhao Ziyang failed to get rid of the square, and did not support the others who decided they needed to send in the troops to keep order, Deng felt he needed somebody else. He wanted an outsider. If Li Peng had become leader, he was so closely associated with a crackdown that he could not have hoped to get a fresh view and support. So he wanted somebody from other places. Although Jiang Zemin had been a member of the Politburo, he had not been a standing committee, but every year for several years, Deng had been spending the winter vacation in Shanghai, and Xianyan and Chenyun also often spent their winters in Shanghai, and they come to know Jiang Zemin there much better than they knew many other officials, and they admired the fact, number one, that he was very open to the outside world. He had been head of the electronics mission. He had been involved under Gumu in the open trade area. He had learned a lot of English. He knew a lot about foreigners. He was absolutely committed to reform and opening. But also, he had been tough and cracked down in a way that did not cause turmoil. And when the Shanghai Journal, Shanghai Jingji Daobao, when that newspaper began to depart from what they felt was an acceptable thing, Jiang Zemin had moved very boldly in putting it down. And also in December '86, he had been very successful in putting down the student movement in Shanghai in a way that did not lead to strong reaction and turmoil. So for all those reasons, Jiang Zemin seemed to be very promising. And I think as a whole, considering the difficulties after Tiananmen, he did a lot to keep the country open. And then somebody asked, is there any hope to end corruption and what to do about it? I think one thing they can do, again, is to kill a lot more roosters to warn a lot more monkeys. That is to find cases where they would crack down tough. I think the old imperial way of dealing with issues when you didn't have the political reach down to the local village was to set some strong examples and to let other people know if they didn't follow those, they could be in real trouble. So I think more cases of very tough handling of corruption would be one way. And then I think that if they begin to have the courage, they should begin to require that officials announce their, and be much more transparent about the amount of money they had and the sources it came from. I think those would be two very important measures that have some sense, some chance of succession. Let's see, then.
Tom was lucky. He's just happened to be there at the right time, and there are no alternatives.
There were a lot of alternatives, and there are a lot of countries in the world that are in bad shape that don't improve. And there are a lot of them that muddle along in a lot of different ways. And in 1978, when we academics were thinking about all the other ways that China might go, there were lots and lots of different ideas, and lots of opportunities to do various other things. And if you look at the countries around the world that one muddles along, you cannot just say there are countries in bad shape that will then turn out to be in good shape. It took a lot of work, a lot of leadership, a lot of cooperation, as well as a lot of luck.
Well, thank you. Well, maybe I'll conclude by